And welcome, Hoosier fans, to this week's edition of Assembly Call Radio, where each week we discuss the most urgent topics in the never-dull world of Indiana basketball. This is our 111th edition of Assembly Call Radio, and it is our 484th episode overall of the Assembly Call, recorded on the evening of Thursday, February 14th, 2019, Valentine's Day. I am your host, Jerod Morris. Let's begin this edition of the Assembly Call how we begin every edition of the Assembly Call, and that is with our Hoosier Proud banner moment.
And Indiana is the national champion.
When it comes down, Indiana will be champion. Smart takes the shot.
The Hoosiers have won the national championship.
This week's banner moment occurred with 5:36 remaining in Sunday's devastating loss to Ohio State. With Indiana down 47-41, Deron Davis passed to Devontae Green, who promptly sank a three, pulling Indiana within 3 points. It was Deron's second and final assist of the game, and both of the assists were on three-pointers. Since his return to the lineup at Michigan State, Deron has dished out 13 assists over 3 games. The next closest Hoosier during that stretch is Romeo, who has 9 assists while playing roughly double the amount of minutes. And of Deron's 13 assists, 8 have come on three-pointers and 4 were dunks. So Deron has been Indiana's best offensive player in terms of facilitating high percentage and high-efficiency looks, both of which were in short supply while he recovered from the ankle injury he suffered against Illinois. And what is really interesting about this flurry of recent assists is that while Deron has always flashed good ability as a passer, he's never done it this consistently or prolifically. He had a total of 6 assists prior to the Michigan State game, never accumulating more than 1 in any game. His assist rates as a freshman and sophomore were 12% and 12.8% respectively. His assist rate now as a junior is 17.1%. Oh, and all the while he has maintained his shooting efficiency and improved his free throw shooting. So what are we to make of this? Well, 2 things. One, Deron has become a critical part of the offensive identity for this year's team. Everything seems to flow better offensively when he's on the court because of his size, skills, and confidence level. He will have to play as many minutes as he can handle down the stretch if the Hoosiers are to make anything of this disappointing season. And 2, as we look forward to next year, Deron projects to be a vitally important piece of Archie Miller's third team at Indiana. His senior leadership will be counted on, as will his ability to anchor the post while Trayce Jackson-Davis experiences his inevitable ups and downs as a freshman in the Big Ten. If the last 3 games are any indication, Deron's skills and mindset are up to the task. If his lumbering body can finally hold up its end of the bargain, Deron may still be able to fulfill the promise he came to Indiana with as a recruit. All right, now let me introduce my esteemed co-host for this week's show. To my left, he is the Chris Mack of Girls Youth Sports Coaching in Cincinnati, the president emeritus of the Robert Johnson Fan Club, and a world-renowned bracketologist. He's also ready for some new apparel after Indiana's former coach landed a top 5 recruit earlier this week.
Let's talk about where we can get those Tom Crean, Georgia versus all y'all shirts.
Andy, what is your bottoms line from the last week in Indiana basketball?
As for the Chris Mack comment, I will say I've never built that kind of lead on a team anywhere near as good as Duke, and so I've never had the opportunity to lose one. So what can you say? For me, I wasn't on the Ohio State game, and I think like a lot of people, that game has felt kind of worse the more that you've gotten away from it. I think some of the other losses over the course of the season, you've been able to rationalize a little bit or try to put into a different context, and that one felt imminently winnable for one, given the way that Ohio State has been playing and is playing. It wasn't an offensive juggernaut that was coming in that you really couldn't stop, and once again it was just the inability to make plays at key times to take control of the game, to build to even get to a point where you could build a lead, and then to make key stops down the stretch. And I think those things have been present maybe in varying durations, but those things have been present during these last 10 games. And as you get to this point in the season, you can tell yourself a story that there's enough good games to be won out there that IU could, claw their way back to the NCAA tournament picture. And you could be asking Brian and I ridiculous scenarios about whether IU could get in the tournament. And maybe that's true. I think the disheartening part is that there just isn't a lot that you've seen from the team that gives you the confidence that they'd be able to take advantage of the opportunities that are in front of them. And you're mid-February and still searching is probably the way I would describe this team, searching for an identity, searching for what the right lineups are, searching for somebody to pull him out of what's going on. And ultimately there aren't too many seasons that end well that you get this deep into it and you still feel like you don't have a lot of answers about what the team is and can be heading down the stretch toward the end of the season. So it's not a place of optimism, but I also would say that hopefully this time off again has given a little bit of time to recoup and hopefully they got something left in the tank for the stretch run. Because again, the opportunities are there. They just need to be able to show on a far, far more consistent basis that they're able to take those both, on the micro level within the game and on the macro level across a series of games.
And to my right, no, it is not Ryan Phillips. Ladies and gentlemen, Ryan is on a date right now for Valentine's Day. Let's give it up for Mr. Phillips. Absolutely.
Ryan had a good night.
No, Megan, we don't know that yet, but hopefully it's a good night. In his place,
Ryan, I'm taking care of you.
He's a veteran Indiana high school head coach and assistant coach and the founder of Delphi Bracketology. He's our Will Sheehy, our Max Bielfeldt, our John Laskowski, the official coach and sixth man of the assembly call. It is the coach, Brian Tonsoni. Coach, it's Tonsoni time. What's on your mind?
It's good to be here, and I'm going to have to meet with Ryan and talk to him about, when it's AC radio night, you get your date done early. Mrs. Coach and I had a little dinner early. I told her our date had to be over in time to do the show. It's all about priorities. I'm glad to be here with the Indiana family and all the diehard Indiana fans. And my Tonsoni time is this. I am looking forward to a time and hopefully sooner than later where the program is about the name on the front of the jersey, and we have players, coaches, whoever you want to put the blame on, but everything's geared towards winning games at the collegiate level, and development is second place. I just right now think that it is a fractured team for whatever reason. We're not there to know. I was not, and we'll talk about this later, I was not really happy with what I saw in pregame. The body language was poor. I think I tweeted about that, and that's not what Indiana basketball is about. And covering other places and going to Purdue, and I know they're winning, so it makes a little difference, but the atmosphere in and around the program is a whole lot different. And I thought it would get here sooner, and that's where I'm disappointed that the Indiana brand is not further along. But I think there's a lot of reasons why it's not there, and we all collectively just need to hold on and keep the faith and keep plugging ahead, because it will get there again, because that's what Indiana basketball is all about.
All right, well, here's what we're going to talk about this week. We will each give a few keys to victory against Minnesota, the game coming up on Saturday. Then we'll talk about the biggest problem that Indiana needs to solve down the stretch. I know there are a lot of them, but I think this one is the biggest, or certainly one of the biggest. We'll talk about why the atmospheres at Assembly Hall have seemed so pedestrian of late, and then we will answer your questions. All of that coming this week on Assembly Call Radio. Before we do that, though, let's talk about sleep.
Go to bed.
Specifically, let's talk about how to improve your sleep, which might mean getting a mattress that is custom designed and satisfaction guaranteed specifically for you, your body, and the way you like to sleep. And our friends at Comfort Option are committed to helping you do this. If you live in Indianapolis or Bloomington, Comfort Option will literally bring their mobile mattress store to your house and custom design a mattress for you right there on the spot. And one of the best elements of this program has always been the incredible 30-90 satisfaction guarantee. Basically, they give you 30 days to try your new mattress, and if you don't like it, they'll take the next 90 days to reconstruct it to your satisfaction. Still don't like it after that, they'll take it back and refund your money. Which sounds too good to be true, but only because no other mattress companies have ever been bold enough and confident enough to offer such a guarantee. But Comfort Option is. And the fine folks over at Comfort Option, they are IU grads and IU fans just like us. They've even got your back if you live outside Indy or Bloomington, and they do this with their Alpha mattress, which they ship direct anywhere in the U.S., cutting out the middleman and saving you money. And get this, Comfort Option recently extended their 30-90 satisfaction guarantee to the Alpha mattress, so even if they ship it to you in, say, San Diego, you'll still have 30 days to try it, 90 days to request a reconstruction, and your satisfaction is guaranteed, where they take it back and refund your money.
Boom, over, done.
So go to comfortoption.com right now and either order your Alpha mattress or schedule your in-home mattress store service today. And when you do it, use the promo code ASSEMBLY to get $50 off your purchase. Again, comfortoption.com, promo code ASSEMBLY for $50 off. Get the mattress that's right for you. Don't leave your sleep to chance. It's too important.
We want you to live.
Yes, we do.
Can we get some basketball, please?
Okay, time to get back to talking basketball. Although I will let you know, by the way, hang around for the end of the show. Megan, one of the original chat mobbers, is going to be here to share her mattress story from her experience with Comfort Option. We're going to do that after the show. We're all very much looking forward to that, a special AC After Dark talking mattresses. So, gentlemen, let's talk about this Minnesota game coming up. Andy, you talked about, the opportunities to get wins. And Indiana obviously has some tough games coming up at home. You got Purdue at home, you got Wisconsin at home, you got Michigan State at home. You do have some games that look like winnable games on the road. Minnesota, kind of a middle of the pack Big Ten team right now. They're 6-8 overall. They've lost 4 in a row. What do you think are going to be some of the most important keys to going up there and getting a win for Indiana?
Yeah, if you look at Minnesota, they really are struggling. They've lost 4 in a row. The 2 wins prior to that were Illinois at home and Iowa at home in a game. They had a reasonably big lead, as I recall, and let Iowa get back pretty close at the end. So they really haven't, their first Big Ten game of once the calendar turned to 2019, they won at Wisconsin, but really since then, they've only won 4 Big Ten games, all at home: Rutgers, Penn State, Iowa, Illinois. So against many of the teams toward the bottom of the league, which I suppose IU would be among those at this point. When you look at the stats, conference play, IU's 13th on offense, Minnesota's 13th on defense. So the movable force against the resistible object, I think, maybe. I don't know. How's that? I don't know what the inverse of that analogy is. So, that's one area where, at least for all of IU's offensive struggles, they're not coming up against a team that's played really well. On the defensive end, really nothing to hang their hat on in conference play as you look down that way. And on the other side of the floor, they really need to just keep Minnesota off the free throw line. We've talked about how great IU's free throw defense has been, of course, but Minnesota has, first in Big Ten play in free throw rate at just over 40%. So that's a really important number for them because they're not a team that shoots the ball particularly well. You're going to watch the 12th and 14th ranked 3-point shooting teams in conference play. So that will be exciting, but they do get yeah, get ready. I'll be at a 6th grade girls game that may feature, a relatively close level of shooting, I think. But, Minnesota does shoot really well from 2. And I think you look at guys like Jordan Murphy, Amir Coffey, who can get to the basket, being able to do some things there. So, it does feel like a game, the way this run has gone. I'm sure I just talked about how bad Minnesota shoots, and they're going to go shoot 53% from 3-point range and something like that. But it does, there's nothing outside of getting the free throw line and being able to score inside that really stands out that Minnesota does well. But IU's had its trouble rebounding. Jordan Murphy is one of the best rebounders in the league, maybe even the country if you go that far out. So I think trying to figure out a way to really keep him off the glass, limit some of those second chance points in a game that should feature quite a few missed shots if the numbers play out the way it looks like they will, or at least a couple of things that stand out to me.
I would say it goes without saying that Indiana needs to get off to better starts in both halves. We're going to cover that in our next segment. Andy, you talked about how Minnesota doesn't shoot particularly well. They're a terrible shooting team on 2s, on 3s, on free throws. Basically, the way they generate points is that high free throw rate and second chance opportunities. So Indiana really needs to try to limit those. And then there's a big opportunity against them in transition. They're one of the worst teams in the country, according to Synergy Sports, in terms of defending in transition. And, part of that is obviously because they crash the boards and really put a high premium on offensive rebounding. So Indiana really, really needs to make them pay going the other direction and get some easy baskets, especially on the road. I think if Indiana can do that, they'll have a good chance to win. If they aren't able to get out in transition and it's just a half-court game all night, I think it'll be much more likely for them to struggle. Coach, what are your keys?
I like your comment about transition. In watching Archie on the sideline Sunday in person, he is constantly imploring the team to push the basketball, and that comes down to getting solid point guard play. I think Finney has had a nice year. He's still just getting back after his injury to playing with a lot of confidence. I think Archie really wants him to push the ball. That's a way, we've said it several times on the show, to get some easier offense. I think the key is finding the right matchups. We're going to talk about that here coming up. Teams have found a way to clog the lane against our stars. And people always say, why aren't we winning with 2 outstanding players? Because they're really playing, whenever they drive, it's 1-on-2, 1-on-3. And when we've played well, we've hit threes and stretched the floor. And so I think some of that has to come to just executing the 3-point shot a little bit better. But it also comes to having players that can maybe do that and stretch the floor and be guarded unlike a few of the players, have been just totally unguarded. And that is hard to come up with offense. So it'll be interesting to see how Minnesota decides to defend the team when certain players are on the floor. And hopefully we see that we can put them in rotation. If we can put them in rotation as bad as they are statistically, I think it bodes well for the Indiana offense. But this team needs to find ways to score points in order to win Saturday.
By the way, one individual that I'll point out for Minnesota is their freshman Gabe Kalsicher. I'm not sure if that's exactly how to pronounce his name. He's kind of like a poor man's Joe Wieskamp, a little bit shorter than him, perimeter guy, pretty good three-point shooter. He's the one shooter that Indiana really needs to find. The rest of the guys, you'll probably be happy if they start launching threes. But Kalsicher, typically when they win, he has a pretty good shooting game. So that's a guy that Indiana really needs to keep tabs on. All right, coming up on the Assembly Call, let's talk about Indiana's poor starts. And while the starts to games get the most attention, it's actually the drastic reversal and how Indiana starts second halves that has led to the post-Christmas slide. We will discuss. Stick with us next on the Assembly Call. All righty. Welcome to everybody watching live. We appreciate you being here on a Valentine's Day night, since Ryan refused to be.
I mean, it's only 6:20 there right now.
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't make reservations later? Jeez.
Yeah, seriously. Well. No, I hope he's having a wonderful night. And the lady that he's with is a big fan of the Assembly Call. So we tip our caps to her for putting up with him on Valentine's night.
I will admit this, Mrs. Tonsoni and I were trying to find some pictures. We just were a little post-dinner at home, a little bit inquisitive about Ryan's girlfriend.
Did you find any?
Date for the night. We found some. My wife, I don't know if that's something to be
Wow.
proud of. She does that with little internet stalking every once in a while, boyfriends and girlfriends of our boys. And sorry, Amy, that's something I'm throwing under the bus.
That's awesome.
The only thing that would be better about that if it was actually you who was doing what you're alleging that she's doing. I think that would make it better. But
yeah,
we may never know the answer to that question. We don't know.
But by the way, Ryan's girlfriend is in the chat too. A little wondering what's going on here. Okay. All right. So let's hop into this. I'll kind of kick this off and just give the basic stats. And then, Coach, I'll kick it to you first, because I figure we should just kind of talk about maybe why this is happening. You can give some of your observations, about how the team warmed up, some of that stuff. And then second part of the segment, try to offer some solutions, which to me is play your 5 most consistent players at the start of the first half and the second half to try and get off to better starts. But we can kind of bounce that back and forth, and especially with Minnesota because they play a big guy plus Jordan Murphy, so it seemed like a good time to start Duran. But anyway, we can kind of bounce that back and forth this segment. So here we go. You guys ready?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Here we go. Welcome back to the Assembly Call. You can find all of our content at our website, assemblycall.com. And if you ever want to participate in our unedited live broadcasts,
Chat mobbers,
or watch those replays, then check out our YouTube channel. As esteemed chat mobber Chad once put it,
hearing the stuff in between, you get to know you guys a lot better.
Like the time Coach discussed his aversion to on-court tomfoolery.
I once kicked my kid out of a 4th grade game because he popped his collar.
Join us live at youtube.com/assemblycall. I'm Jerod Morris here with Andy Bottoms and the coach Brian Tonsoni. So, guys, let's talk about starts because, the way that Indiana has gotten off to starts in first halves of games has been a problem all season long. But when I dug into the numbers, I was doing a little research for Banner Morning earlier this week. Looking at what we've done at the starts of second halves really stood out. And so I want to get your guys' reaction to this. So in Indiana's 8 games against top 100 competition prior to the Michigan game, so, the Illinois game and all the non-conference games, plus the Northwestern and Penn State game against top 100 competition, the Hoosiers were outscored by a total of 23 points during the first 10 minutes of first halves. All right, not good. Indiana, digging themselves early holes. But during the first 10 minutes of second halves, Indiana actually outscored its opponents by 23 points. So the Hoosiers were countering their poor first half starts by often winning to start the second half, and it was a trend that we noticed and talked about a lot on the postgame show, and would often be a key to Indiana starting a comeback victory. But in the Hoosiers' 10 games against top 100 competition since then, all right, they have been outscored by 42 points during the first 10 minutes of first halves, which is similar to before, though a little bit worse on a per-game basis. But during the first 10 minutes of second halves, Indiana has been outscored by a whopping 56 points, including 4 instances in which the Hoosiers were outscored by double digits to start the second half. And note that Indiana's best 3 first-half starts at Maryland, at Northwestern, and at Rutgers were countered by their 3 worst starts in the second half, where they basically gave all of that lead up and more. So the Hoosiers are having to make up a ton of ground to, in the second part of halves, both first halves and second halves, and they just aren't confident, explosive enough offensively to be able to do it. So, Coach, from your perspective as a coach, when you see that, a team that is just so bad, both the start of the first and the second half, what does that tell you about that team, and what are some things that you would try to do to shake them out of it, if anything?
Well, it's easier said than done. A lot of times, sometimes when you have those teams, they're a little mentally soft or they lack some toughness, and it takes a little bit of a jolt to their conscience or whatever to get them started. Oh my gosh, we're down 11-2. Now we have nothing to lose. And so now we start playing a little bit better. I just start to believe that this team is what I call a little bit of a light switch team, that when the light switch is turned on, their play is really, really solid and they can compete with anyone. When the light switch is turned off, they can play as bad as anyone on their schedule. And some of that has to be on Coach Miller to try to push the right buttons and know how each player is motivated and the team is motivated collectively. But I also put a lot on the players. When I was there Sunday, I'm an old-fashioned guy. I think when you show up at Assembly Hall, Cook Hall on game day, you're there to work on game-ready skills. And I did not see that. Now, whether that's does the coach have to make sure that happens? You could argue that they have to do that, but players should do that too. Robert Finnessy was working really hard on his three-point shot right up until the last buzzer to send him to the bench for starting lineups. He was down in a stance, catching game speed. There were other players, and that I'm not into calling out players on the radio, but there were other players who were very nonchalant in warm-ups and just catching the ball and taking their own time, just like you do when you go to the park to wait for a 5-on-5 game. And I think that sometimes players don't even know that they got to get themselves motivated or how to be self-starters. This team is not a self-starting team. And I think when you shut it down at halftime, heck, we've practiced halftime sometimes in the 20-some years that I've coached high school kids to get them used to that break and then to get restarted again. So you try all kinds of tricks as a coach. Some of them work, some of them don't. I saw in the chat there was a talk about is Archie not making halftime adjustments. I thought he made great halftime adjustments when they were 12-2, and now he's not making them when they're losing. So sometimes, it has to be on coach, but I don't think it's X's and O's. I think this team has a little bit of a lackadaisical approach, and you need to just practice it out of them and do what you can to tell them they're better when they are locked in and focused. Because they come back in almost every game and then they have another down segment. So I think that's part of the key. I think it's personnel-wise too. I think we need to see some different lineups because if you can't hit an open 15-footer and if you can't drive to the basket and keep track of the basketball at the college level, you're really hurting the other team's offensive ability. And you're going to have to go with guys that can provide something a little bit different.
And a lot of times it's offense at the start of halves that is really bad and the shooting is bad. So maybe the fact that they warm up like that, it's almost like their first game speed shots happen in the game rather than happening in the warm up to where you're ready for those shots when the action starts.
And we're not determined to get the shots that we want early in the games. We settle. So the team comes in and sticks a guy at the basket, go through 2 guys and try to get a shot at the rim. And we do that at times, but it seems like almost every game there's a settled 3, a couple turnovers, and then another settled 3, and Indiana's down 11-2. I don't think there's a real fight to get the shots that you want. Some of that is because of the defense, but I think I just wonder if the approach right now. And when you're losing, you feel sorry for yourself, and you got to be tougher when you're losing. And I just don't see it with this team collectively.
So, Andy, let's talk about potential solutions, because something that we have talked about, especially after these last couple games, is maybe it's time to start Duran. And maybe it's time to just put your 5 most consistent players at the start of the halves. And yeah, you only have Duran for maybe 20 to 22 minutes, but at least get off to better starts, play him at the end, and just figure out what you have to do in the middle. And if Indiana's going to do that, it would seem like this game against Minnesota would be a good time, because they start the big guy Oturu alongside Murphy. So it would really seem like a good game to do that if Archie were inclined to do so.
Yeah, I think even going back a little bit further than that, I had thrown out the notion of moving Juwan to the 4 and trying to figure something else out. And I think that may have even been before Duran really has come back and played well. And in my head, it was just to give a different look, because if you want to continue to play the way that they did, I think that was, for me, one of the more frustrating things at the beginning, at least, of the Ohio State game. And Ryan Carrazza broke that down on Inside the Hall, and all those possessions where basically they're parking a guy in the middle of the lane and basically letting Justin Smith do whatever he wants. At some point, you have to deploy him in a different place. You can't continually set him up to get the ball at the top of the key, knowing that they're not going to guard him. So do you invert him and Juwan, even though he's not really a post-up player, but at least keep somebody honest to do that? But continuing to give him the ball on the perimeter is kind of setting him up to fail, unfortunately. And you would like to think that he is at a point in his career where he's going to know, some of the things that Coach said of, I'm going to be able to drive into traffic without losing the ball. I'm going to be able to pull up and confidently take a 12-foot jump shot. Fact is, he wasn't doing that. So it becomes really difficult if you want to continue to deploy him where you are on the floor and watch him play the way that he's played. It really becomes tough to talk yourself into that being the right thing to do. So if that's what you're going to do when he's on the floor, then to me, you can't put him on the floor as much as you have been. You either got to adjust where you're using him, or you got to adjust who's playing. And so if the answer is let's adjust who's playing, I think Duran has shown certainly a good passing ability. You highlighted that in the opening, and he at least is a guy that other defenses have to respect. You wouldn't, if the roles were reversed and he's the guy inside and Juwan is the guy playing where Justin Smith was against Ohio State, they're not going to park the guy in the 3 feet from the basket and dare Juwan to take shots, because at a minimum he's shown the ability to hit threes this year, but can even step in and make another shot. So at this point, clearly what you're doing isn't working. So your options to me are you either go with a different group or you figure out a different place to put Justin Smith on the floor where he can be successful and not be basically baited into taking either poor shots or drives that are going to end up losing the basketball.
For what it's
Andy,
worth,
the problem with that, though, is his best spot is on the block, and that's where Duran's best spot is, and that's where Juwan's best spot is as well. Yeah. I know Duran could play outside, but the adjustment, you're absolutely right. Get him off the perimeter, set him on the block, but then that even clouds things up for Romeo driving, and that's where the coach is really caught between a rock and a hard place. That's an absolute place to put him, but he has trouble scoring down there as well. So that might be bench time too in different rotations at some point.
Well, to that point, his minutes have dropped a little bit these last couple games. Starting with the Illinois game, he played at least 31 minutes in every game except for one, which was the Maryland game. When he got that was the game he got in foul trouble and was playing really well defensively early and got in foul trouble for most of the second half. But these last 2 games, he's played 28 and 24 minutes as Deron Davis has been able to come back and take some of those minutes. So we're already seeing that adjustment, and it's going to be interesting to see how that evolves moving forward. Coach.
Well, hang on. The other thing that I would say about that, I mean, if you look, again, these are in-game efficiency numbers, but they are brutal.
Bad.
I mean, only that Michigan game, the first Michigan game at Michigan, he was well over 100, basically scoring, over a point per possession on possessions that he uses. But I mean, hasn't been over 100 in any of the other 9 games, and there's some of them that have been incredibly low. So,
and that's basically like a standard, like average.
Yeah. I mean, even the Michigan State game, he was at a 93, which was largely a function of him taking so many more shots than what he had before, but the rebounds and some of those things help make up for it. But yeah, I mean, the other numbers, 76, 84, 67, 75, 49 in one of the games. I mean, it's really hard it's really hard to win unless everybody else is playing so much better. And that really magnifies these slow starts, because the offense we've seen is not one that's going to dig you out of a big hole. It's just not capable of it right now. And so, yeah, I don't feel like you have to look really hard. He's been solid defensively and has improved in that area over the season, but I don't think you have to look really hard to figure out that if there's somebody that you might need to give a few less minutes to right now, it's him. Doesn't mean that doesn't change next year. Doesn't mean he's a lost cause, as I think some people would like you to believe. But right now, he's just not giving you enough to warrant leaving him on the floor for the amount of minutes that he was playing at that point earlier in the season.
Yeah, it doesn't fit quite as well, and he's got to be elite defensively to make up for that, those offensive struggles, and he hasn't been consistent enough. So last point on this, Coach, I mean, other than breaking clipboards and tossing around soiled toilet paper, like what would you do to, try to get these guys starting off better?
Well, we talked a little bit pre-show that what you do is use the bench as a motivator in the game and outside the game, but with the massive amounts of injury, the drop-off, you're better with Justin Smith playing good defense and not being a threat on offense than maybe going down to some guys that you recruited to develop for a year and really didn't expect to play. That makes it hard. With Duran coming back, you see the minutes going down. You have a capable backup. Well, Duran was gone for 4 games in that losing streak. So I think you do that. As far as the young man, I think you just keep talking to him, showing him film. And then at some point you got to find the right buttons. Sometimes kids need to get screamed and yelled at. Sometimes kids just need to be told, hey, you're not going to play until you play a little better. And then it's up to the young man to figure it out. But it is time for him to figure out consistent effort. There is some body language off the camera, and that's why I like going to the games. It was the first game that I saw that, again, certain players being subbed out and shrugging their shoulders, and that's where the opening for me is it's got to get back to winning for Indiana, not what's best for individual players. And that's hard to coach out of kids. And when things start to roll bad, you can try a whole bag of tricks as a coach. Sitting them in practice, putting them on the second unit of practice, extra work, all of those things. But ultimately, if someone is not mentally locked in, you're never going to get their best performance. So you just got to keep trying. And you call your buddies in coaching, hey, have you ever had a guy like this? What did you do? What do you suggest? And right now you need a psychology degree with this team, I think, more than you need X's and O's.
Yeah. Good point to end on, Coach. All right, as we move forward here with the Assembly Call, there was something we got more questions about than anything else, and that is the atmosphere at Assembly Hall. So we're going to talk about that. Coach was there, talk about what the issues are and what can be done to fix it. That's next on the Assembly Call. All right. Good segment, fellas.
Hey, quick for the chat mob people too, and college is different than high school. We had a team last year in our first year. We had to take a timeout every time in the first 2 minutes because we didn't show up and we're down 6-0, 7-0, 8-0. We tried everything and couldn't get it changed. This year, never once. We got our dudes. We got most of our team is our dudes now, and they bought in and they're working hard. But we've never had to take a motivation timeout this year. But we had to take almost every game in a year. And boy, that's frustrating as a coach because you talk about it in the practice. You talk about it in film. In the pregame talk, you're like, okay, we got to get off to a good start. And you sometimes even give a Newt Rodney speech and get them fired up, and then boom, you're down 8-0, no effort, timeout, and you got to get them going. Is
it similar guys that just grew and matured, or is it different dudes?
Well, it's some different dudes. We graduated some few people, and a few people decided not to come back because they didn't buy into the right way of doing things. When you go the first year, you keep almost everyone to see what you have. And, we didn't really cut too many people, but we made it a point of here's how you're going to play for us. And if you don't like it, then maybe this isn't for you, and it's extracurricular activity. You don't have to be here. Yeah. And that's where we may see some roster adjustments come down the line. If these players, they're talking in the chat about some locker room issues and stuff like that. That is, you shouldn't have to coach that as a coach, but when it's happening, man, that takes a lot of your stuff away. And it's still your job. It's still Archie's job to fix it, and it's still Archie's job to find a way to get it done. So he's not getting it done, but it's hard when this thing starts rolling.
I mean, a basketball team is just such a delicate balance, you know? I mean, chemistry is so important that any of those kind of issues can just derail things. And, you know, as fans, we don't know a lot of times when that stuff is going on, but I don't know. This sure feels like a team that just isn't on the same page.
And it's so personnel driven too. You know, one year we went to the semi-state. We were one game away from the state championship, and we had a retreat in the preseason. Did the same thing the next year and only won 4 games and had internal problems. And the only thing different was dudes. I mean, it was different guys and different issues that someone wanted to play here, someone didn't like this role, someone didn't like that role, and the buttons I pushed were wrong, and it imploded. So it's not fun to go through, and there's no guarantee that it'll be fixed when the new season works around. But man, I don't see a remedy unless they can get a win here and had an internal meeting and got some things settled in the locker room and go out and win 5 or 6.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it'll make for interesting offseason because of some of that kind of stuff. Seems like. I certainly don't know anything, but it just feels like there'll be more change than there was last year.
Yeah.
I would like
some
to
of that
ask,
was APR stuff, I think, but
yep. I would like to ask someone who's been to the games more than I have been. I saw every assistant coach out watching warm-ups. Now, they didn't instruct or anything, but the first thing that dawned on me was that I don't remember there's always 2 or 3, maybe assistant or a strength coach or something, but most of the assistants come out a little bit later. And the first thing that dawned on me, are they watching this team? Do they have to watch this team warm up? And then they didn't warm up real well. And I was like, man, maybe there's something going on. I have no clue. That is just a theory. It was the first game that I was at, and it just seemed like, you know, maybe that's what they do. Maybe that's what this staff does. And I didn't notice it last year when I went. But I'd like for them to step up and tell Justin Smith to practice the right way.
You need to just like run on the court like Shooter and Hoosiers and just, you know.
Definitely. Yeah, you definitely have to be. You have to be drunk though. That's the only.
You gotta be
when
drunk
he means like Shooter and Hoosiers, it has to be.
You're gonna warm up like that.
You might as well go in there and take off your uniform.
It's fantastic.
Oh,
man, you're talking about those early timeouts. It was a game that I was coaching hands. This is like a 4th grade game. I took a timeout 10 seconds into a half.
Yeah.
The last thing I said when they went out was this other team was like running these ball screens, and I go, "Do not chase them around these. Do not chase them around these screens." Girl goes out the very first play, drives around, follows her around the screen, and they get a layup. I was like, timeout. Forget it. I was like, I literally just said to you that this is what we're doing. So
we were playing in a tournament over holiday at Lawrenceburg, and this private school out of Dayton, they took 3 timeouts in the first minute and a half, and he was out of timeouts at the end of the first quarter. It was the craziest thing I've ever seen.
It was
5
hilarious.
timeouts in the first minute.
It was funny. Hannah's team came back and won a game this past Saturday, but the other coach had I looked over, I was running the scoreboard, and the guy who was keeping the book, he goes, "Has this guy just used 3 timeouts in the first half and he's up by 10 points?" And we looked over and we're like, "Yep, he sure has." But every time his team would do, he was a little bit nutty. But every time his team would do something wrong that he didn't like, he would take a timeout so he could go and yell at him. I'm like, 1, these are 6th grade girls. 2, they can already hear you because you're yelling the entire game. 3, you just burned 3 timeouts, and we ended up outscoring him 15-1 in the 4th quarter and winning. And he didn't have any timeouts that he could take to do anything because he had used them to be a lunatic in the first half. So it was good times.
Poor guy. All right, we've got 21 minutes left, so I figure let's do maybe 12, 13 minutes for this segment.
Okay. I did not get a chance to read through these, but I'm sure you'll read them enough on here to get to a point.
Yeah, I probably won't read all of it, but I'll just
right.
do I don't know if I'll get into my data there at the end, but let's just hop into this and see where it goes.
Okay. I do know you're going to rant about the Backstreet Boys. Reasonably so.
Dude, that deserves every time I hear that. And there's something about hearing it in the doldrums of another home loss, with 4 minutes to go, and then you hear that stupid Everybody song playing. It's angering. I don't know. I mean, when we go to that Michigan State game, if that game's not going well and that song plays, I might be jumping onto the court drunk. And
you can't be held responsible for your actions at that point. It's fine.
No. What is going on? That's just who chooses that song? It's just awful. Anyway.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. I'll let you save some for your discussion of this during the segment.
All right. All right, here we go. Welcome back to the Assembly Call. I'm Jerod Morris. I'm here with Andy Bottoms and the coach Brian Tonsoni. Remember, you need to be subscribed to our email newsletter. We send it out both after the games or post-game analysis, plus our weekly IU news roundups, even during the off-season. It will make you a smarter or more well-informed IU basketball fan.
There's a high-level operation going on out there.
So just text IU to 66866 or go to assemblycall.com. That's IU to 66866 or go to assemblycall.com.
Make no excuses.
All right, so Coach, as we mentioned, you were at the game, at the Ohio State game, and when I put out a call for questions this week, there was one topic that we got way more than anything else. So instead of saving it for segment 4, we're going to talk about it here. And I don't think we're necessarily going to figure anything out, but we at least need to kind of talk about it and explore the issue a little bit. But this question from our buddy Chris, IU Artifacts, really kind of summed it up. He said, I don't know about others who regularly attend games, but I find it disheartening that during timeouts, especially in critical moments of the game, there's nothing going on to truly keep fans inspired, pumped up, and loud. Everything seems flat coming out of these timeouts to the point where we truly are struggling to get motivated for the next play. I realize the season has been a downer, but this kind of situation has happened at key moments of important games. What suggestions would you make to timeouts down the stretch, more about keeping fans lively? And so, I would say a couple things here, Coach, and I want to get your thoughts because you were there. Number one, and, I recall going to games as a kid, at timeouts, it always felt like there was something, like the cheerleaders were doing a Go IU chant, or there was something to kind of keep the fans engaged. And maybe, that isn't happening as much. We only go to one game a year now, and I haven't noticed it, quite as much as I used to as a kid, but I certainly remember that was happening. And I will also say, just to preface this entire conversation, this is not meant as like a dig at the fans because, while Ryan has been critical at times of the fans this year, I have a real hard time putting a lot of it on the fans because it's always felt to me, at least watching on TV, like the fans, even though they haven't been there in the numbers we would like, have been ready to explode and support this team, but the team has never quite been able to keep the momentum up. So, that to me is the bigger issue with the enthusiasm in the hall, though, there are other opinions on that. But overall, I think it's more the malaise of the team. But Chris does bring up a good point about things that could be done to keep fans engaged. So, Coach, what did you notice being there at the Ohio State game?
Yeah, first of all, thanks to Chris. He was the guy who got me some nice tickets, mid-court, row 6. Had a good day with him talking IU sports. I thought the crowd was okay. I thought that they got there early. It was snowing. I was worried that it would be a light crowd. The students weren't as there as possible. It wasn't as loud as it's been, and probably because the team hasn't played very well. I thought there were several times during the game where the crowd tried to respond. But to Chris's question, it's about atmosphere, and the atmosphere is the team, the crowd, the support staff, and what is done throughout the game. When you go to good college basketball arenas, that atmosphere starts half an hour before the game and it ends just after the game is done, and it is a constant buzz hum that is basketball related. I think sometimes in our arena, and it is in some other arenas, that it becomes a revenue stream issue, and commercials are shown during timeouts, and Buccetto's pizza races and things like that. And I'm not smart enough to understand that there might be a need for that revenue. And I have a lot of respect for people in the athletic department. But I hate to bring this up on the assembly call, but Delphi Bracketology covers, we get media credentials at Purdue. That place is a zoo. It is an absolute nut place besides the obvious reasons. But I'm talking that atmosphere from the start. I've never seen so many people that don't know what they're doing get together for one cause. It is what I consider to be basketball atmosphere. And, the band does a great job of keeping people entertained throughout the timeouts. And I don't notice any commercials or any sponsorships or whatever. And I'm sure Purdue has them up on the board. But I notice them more at Indiana than the other intermission type stuff. And I'm like you. I was trying to think back. There's cheers. I don't remember the commercial aspect of it as much as I
there weren't any ads in Assembly Hall there for a while.
You had the airport abbreviation game and all of those things. I think you got to make a conscious decision. Do you want a basketball atmosphere, or are you just putting on a basketball game? And I'll take it off the crowd. I thought the crowd was there enough for the team. The team wasn't there for the crowd. And I will say that Sunday.
I did. There were some anecdotal kind of notes in our community from people that were, concerned that, too many people were on their phones and not quite into it and all of that. But this kind of goes into that. If you're giving people downtime, they're going to fill it with something and get distracted.
Chris told me that there was a comeback in the Iowa game with 2.5 minutes to go. And instead of a pump up song or something or a cheer, they're playing the Bachetto's Pizza Race where people are yelling yellow, purple, or green. And it just killed the vibe of any momentum. I think that just needs to be looked at. And again, I don't mean any disrespect to the hardworking people at Indiana, but Purdue, Duke, some of those places, it's an atmosphere that helps win basketball games, and Assembly Hall can get there and can get back there. I think the team needs to win first and foremost. That's the number one issue. They got to get better. Coaches got to get better. Players got to get better. But it's too commercial for me. I feel that way about football too. And I guess I just need a lesson in revenue probably to be fair.
Now, Andy, you've been very supportive of the Backstreet Boys music at the end of second halves. Would you like to defend that stance?
No, I thought that was your that's your corner there to go against that. No, I just loved that you had tweeted about it and then it was listed in your notes. I think the actual fan support during the game, I think there's two elements of it. I think one is what you guys said of how you kind of maintain that energy as you're going through, which I think is a fair criticism. It sounds like in terms of what they're doing, or even in those moments when there can be the opportunity to, pipe in a song to maybe make a different choice. But the other thing, it's kind of a chicken and egg argument at some point of, if I show up and I'm ready to go, and then the team comes out and, is continuously digging a hole for itself at the beginning of the game,
or the shot clock malfunctions.
It's easy to say, all right, well, you kind of fall back into I'm going to wait till something good happens to cheer versus I'm going to cheer to make something good happen. It kind of becomes that argument. And I think, I think people are in different scenarios that go to the games. I mean, as you said, we go to one game a year, so I'm going to be a lot more apt to get pretty into it versus if I've been to 5 straight games, even going into the Ohio State game, I've seen 3 straight home losses and a team in a couple of them, you didn't really feel like they showed up. I might go, but it feels a little bit more like it's going to take something for you as the team to really get me into the game versus, I haven't been and I'm going to go for my one time a year and go all out and get really excited. I think it's a mix of those people in the crowd. And if you're not getting everybody, kind of in the bucket of the person who's, one time there a year, really getting into it, it becomes hard. But I understand why you want to get out there. And there's times that the team isn't showing you a whole lot to get excited about, even from an effort standpoint, where you can really, and I think some of those things are, you guys talked to Jordan Hulls this week. I think some of those things with those teams really pulled people along and made them want to cheer because you felt like you might make a difference. You knew they were outmanned. You knew they needed help, but you also saw them playing so hard that you felt like maybe some obligation or whatever it might be, that maybe you could do something to push it over the top, but they motivated you to do that. And I think this year's team has struggled to really push people and give them a reason to give them that extra nudge to get a little bit further, unfortunately.
Yeah. And look, in a big, look, like you said, Andy, we don't live in Bloomington. We go to one game a year. So we really have to defer to other people when it comes to the atmosphere there. And it's a very complicated issue that doesn't have a simple answer. I do think we've been doing the show now for 8 years. We started in the 2012 season. I don't remember a whole lot of complaints about the crowd the first 2 seasons that we were doing the show. Part of that is because the fans loved that team, embraced that team. They brought it pretty much every night, and they were really good. But it's felt like for about the past 5 or 6 seasons, outside of 2016, when that team really got on a roll, about this time in the year, this becomes an annual topic. And part of that is clearly because the team just hasn't been playing that well. And I think, we're really, if we can't get this thing turned around and start winning consistently again under Archie Miller, and I'm not saying I don't think that we will, but I just think it's a very critical time right now because, Andy, when you and I came up as fans, we were kind of at the tail end of such a great run for Indiana, from 72 to 94, 22 years where Indiana finished in the top 25 18 times, in the top 10 12 times, won 3 national titles. We missed the tournament just 4 times in that span. Well, if you look at the 23 years since, from 95 to 2018, Indiana's finished the season in the top 25 just 6 times, and in the top 10 once, and we've made one Final Four. We've missed the tournament 8 times in that span. All of that coming in the last 15 seasons. So, whereas, we kind of became fans at a time where you always expected the best and you expected winning. We've got, 2+ decades now of fans that have come up just kind of expecting Indiana to be good every now and then, and this vague promise of what things once were, but so many false starts of we're finally back. And if you're interested in this topic, I highly recommend the Crimson Cast, where they really went into this in a lot more depth. But, at some point, Coach, the consistent winning is going to have to come back to pack the stands and to redevelop a fan base that comes in, game out, expecting the team to win. Because I just think right now, and it's totally understandable why, I don't know that we have that same just confident / enthusiasm, as an overall fan base when we're at the Hall.
Yeah, and I'm a big believer. I get into this with some of my football buddies. If you want crowds, win. And I don't think it's a chicken or the egg situation. I think winning cures a lot of things. And when you win, people want to be there. And probably when you guys started the show, that's when IU started to turn around and making Sweet 16s and ranked number 1. And people were happy. And then it's kind of gotten choppy since then. So you understand that. No one likes to watch a product that's up and down. But again, I think college sports are that's, if you went to school there or you've been a diehard fan and didn't go to school there, you got to stay with it and bring everything you got. It's good or bad. I'd rather watch Indiana than some other teams. And I'm proud to wear the cream and crimson and have my man cave all painted up, and I won't go anywhere else, win or lose. And we need more of that attitude than win or I'm quitting on the team. I'm not watching anymore. I'm not doing this. I don't care if it's the worst program in the world. I'm going to watch. And I would implore fans to get back to that, because college sports and Indiana University deserve it.
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Yeah, I think I agree with both of you, because I think the foundation that Jerod talked about is probably what leads us to all fall into the camp of what Coach has said. We have such great fond memories of watching games growing up, of whether it was in Assembly Hall or not. And those kinds of foundational things make it really hard to turn away from something and not feel emotionally invested in it. And even if I would say I'm, because other things in life come up and there's things that you find eventually that there's things more important than that, maybe I'm not as emotionally invested as I once was, but at least in that sense, I think we have a lot of that. And then I think you've got a generation of people now who don't have the same, quantity and maybe even quality of those fond memories of what that really means. And I think it becomes a point of, I won't say animosity, but I think it becomes a, point of pride for some people to do, and a reason to get upset with other people who don't view it in the same way. And so I think it's, you need to get to a point where another generation of folks has those experiences that really matter. And you referenced a few numbers and probably put together some others that, there's a heck of a lot of people who just don't have that same idealized view of it. And maybe that leads us to trying to find an idealized view of this team, every single season as we do that. I just think there's not people who view it that way anymore, which is a function of how they perform, which is a function of winning, like Coach said. So, like it or not, there are certainly folks who have been around and saw enough winning early on to kind of anchor themselves to the program in that way. But unfortunately right now, the reality is that I think there are a lot of folks who haven't done that, who don't have those kinds of, that thing to really anchor them to it. And hopefully one of these teams will be able to build that back up in a sustained way, as opposed to, those kind of, short flashes like you talked about in a couple of the seasons, even since we've been doing the show.
Got to create those emotional attachments, man. That's what we need more of. All right, coming up in our final segment, we answer more of your questions, including one about who our IU basketball Valentine is, a very timely question, and another about why it seems like Archie is getting consistently out-coached in Big Ten play. That is next on the Assembly Call. Stick with us. All right. Lots of great feedback there in the chat. Appreciate all you guys chiming in, because a topic like that, needs more than 12 or 14 minutes.
Andy, you said something that really hit home too. And then with the chat, Joel says there's lots of other shiny things out in the world and attention spans are much shorter. You think about IU hasn't won consistently in 20 years, and that's been, most of the internet and smartphones and jobs and other things, and that emotional attachment is not there like it is for us that didn't have a whole lot of other things to do than to sit down and attend an Indiana basketball game. And back, I'm really bad. Football was good when I was in school there. Basketball won a national championship when I was there. And
those were the golden years, man.
Man, it's just hard for me to get away from it, but I can someone graduated in the last 5 to 10 years, doesn't have that emotional connection. And now there's other things to do. And,
that's what creates a man who spends his Valentine's Day talking IU basketball and the team's 13-11.
Absolutely.
I mean, it is.
If she loves me, she'll do it. She'll let me do it. If not, then we'll have another different Valentine, later or something. It's priorities, Jerod.
Man.
Priorities.
Yeah.
Didn't you say that in our interview for the kids? Commitment to I should remember that. I've used it over and over again. Be committed to your. Oh, well, I forget the term you used. Obviously, it must have been really important. Anyway, showing up when you.
I don't know what's worse, that you can't remember it or that Jerod has the equally puzzled look, like he has no idea what you're talking about.
Now I remember the conversation, but I don't remember the exact phrasing.
Yeah, but it's something about always be there for your commitments, honor your commitments, or be true to your commitments, something like that. So
we need to go back and find that. We'll create an audio drop, and every time Ryan skips out, then we can play that. As a reminder. Oh, man.
Valentine's advice. Marry wisely. I mean, I think the three of us probably have in order to be on this show on Valentine's Day.
Heck yeah. They might not think so, but I certainly think so. They may be questioning it right now.
My wife and I went on our first date 22 years ago today. So.
Wow, on Valentine's Day.
On Valentine's Day, yeah.
I will always remember my first date with Heather because it was the night of the Louisville-Michigan National Championship game. In 2013. Didn't watch any of it.
I met my wife at my
ex-girlfriend's wedding. So according to the NCAA, that game never happened. So
that's right.
I wouldn't worry about it. You didn't miss anything.
It's true.
I met Mrs. Coach at my ex-girlfriend's wedding. She was the maid of honor.
Really?
Yep.
Wow.
So, yep, marry wisely, people out there, or stay married wisely too. That's good advice in this day and age.
Yeah. Yes, it is. Okay, so we have 6 minutes and 1 second. We can each. Who's your IU basketball Valentine? All right, we'll hit that one, and then we'll hit Tony's question. We won't have a lot of time to dive into that, but we'll hit that too. And then we'll see if we can get to any of these other ones. And then Megan's popping on. We're talking mattresses. We're going to just get so many drops from this segment. It's going to be awesome. But that's part of the goal so that we can use them in our comfort option ads. So Megan knows that is what's about to happen.
AC after dark. Nothing like Valentine's Day and mattresses. Don't want to hurt yourself out there, chat mom. Don't pull any muscles.
All right. Here we go. You're listening to the Assembly Call. We are wrapping up another week of talking IU basketball. I'm Jerod Morris here with Andy Bottoms and the coach Brian Tonsoni. And as we do every week now in segment 4, we'll answer some of your questions, and we get these questions from our private IU basketball discussion community at assemblycall.com/community. And so let's start out with JD's question. It's a timely one. I figured someone would ask this. It's been a rough Big Ten season. How about some positivity and gasp fun? Who is your IU basketball Valentine? Andy, who's your IU basketball Valentine right now?
Well, I'll just throw out a couple guys who I really liked when I was in school. One was Larry Richardson, which was my roommate and I, for whatever reason, really latched on to Larry Richardson, and unexpectedly, he really turned in some big performances toward the end of his career, which was extremely unexpected. But he found his way into the hearts of some other fans during then. The other one I was a like not long after that was a big Coverdale guy for a little while. So those are at least a couple from the past that were some of my, older favorites outside of obviously Calbert Chaney and some of those other guys we've talked about. Now, if we really want to get corny around the Valentine's Day, you could throw out Steve Hart's name, but that would be
Oh
in
boy,
poor,
you just
that would be in poor form.
You had to do it.
Just couldn't help myself.
Couldn't help yourself. Coach, your IU basketball Valentine.
Quinn Buckner, favorite all time, servant leader, didn't care about scoring, got the job done, was a champion. Just back from the old days, what I think is a typical point guard, run the show, lead the team, be a leader, on-court leader. We talk about some of the issues of today's team. Quinn wouldn't put up with it. As a young person, age 10, 11, and 12, watching that team, I learned a lot about what it takes to be a champion. Quinn Buckner is my Valentine.
I'm going to go with a couple of guys on the current team. I'm going to go with Rob Finney and Al Durham. Two guys who, their play has been a little bit up and down. Al didn't have a very good game, last time out against Ohio State. Rob has been up and down since the concussion. But as this season has gone along, I really have appreciated how hard those guys have played. Some of the leadership traits that they've showed, Coach. You talked about some of the leadership by example, from Rob, just in how he works out. We've seen Al kind of come out of a shell. And I really, while so much of this season has gone wrong, I feel really good about those guys as backcourt building blocks for the future. Not that they're going to be All-Americans or, surefire all Big Ten players, but they are guys for Archie Miller to build around that I think are going to be legitimately really good players moving forward. And so it hasn't been a season with a whole lot of positives, but I'm still really optimistic about those guys and what they can do in their future at Indiana. And tell us who your IU Valentine is. Tweet us at Assembly Call. We would love to see what you come up with. Coach, this is from Tony. Why does it seem that Archie is constantly getting out-coached this Big Ten season? All the film sessions keep showing how IU is getting exposed instead of showing what Archie's doing to expose the opponent. Kind of concerning. Are you concerned about Archie's coaching, or do you think that this might be more of a personnel type issue and something else manifesting here?
Everyone knows my bias. I think it's a personnel issue. When you have huge degrees of issues, there's a whole bunch of things you can try. Indiana's offense got better when they had to double team the low post against Ohio State and kicks out for a three for Romeo. So, that's good offense. I think Archie knows what he's doing. I think at the beginning of the year he had made some good adjustments. I just think right now that the defensive adjustments are really hard when you have three guys sitting at the rim. There's not a whole lot of offensive plays and stuff out there to really knife through that effectively without someone hitting a few threes. So, yeah, he needs to do a better job. It's always the coach's responsibility, but it's tough.
And part of it, too, is on defense. Ben and I talked about this on Basketball 201. It's like, teams kind of know what we're going to do on defense because teams know what you do with the pack line defense. The goal when you run the pack line is just to run it so darn well that even if teams know what you're going to do, they can't do it. And that last play, they slip the screen, our help isn't there quick enough. That's almost surely not how it's being taught. The lessons just haven't sunk in yet with a freshman in Rob Finney who was on the ball, a sophomore in Justin Smith who was guarding the screen, and a freshman in Romeo who was helping against seniors and juniors running the offense. So that's part of it too, is that some things that look like coaching and to a certain extent are, in some ways, are young guys who just haven't been able to absorb all the lessons yet. Now, Archie hasn't really adjusted and maybe simplified things, but he's committed to doing things his way, and I can see it both ways there. Andy, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, the pack line is funny because that's one of the criticisms, and I know you and Ben kind of talked about. Is it a case where do you compromise on what you think you want to do from your system, given personnel for a year, and you kind of push off the implementation of what you want to do in building that a year, and then you sit down and you watch a team like Virginia who plays it so well. And a lot of people want to argue that, that their style of play is not great, whatever. But if you want to watch good defense, go watch how they play, and they can really even things out. They've gotten better players over the course of time, but you watch them play North Carolina, who, recruiting rankings, all those kinds of things. What they did was able to negate a lot of good players versus, sometimes you play a team like Duke who doesn't matter. They're going to beat you just because they got so much better athletes, but it can work against really good teams.
Yep. All right, that's going to have to do it for us on this week's edition of the Assembly Call. If you want to see us do the show live, join us at assemblycall.com on Thursday nights for the live broadcast of our Assembly Call radio recording. And you can always subscribe to our podcast by searching for Assembly Call wherever you listen to podcasts. And don't forget to go to assemblycall.com or text IU to 66866 to join our free email newsletter. Thank you for listening. We will be back to talk with you Saturday after the IU Minnesota game. Until then, keep your elbows in and your eyes on the rim, and go Hoosiers.
Thank everybody for coming out.
All right, I got to get out of here, folks. Thank you.
All right, and cut.
Yeah,
sorry to cut you off.
No,
there.
you're fine. That's why I didn't know how much time we had. So,
Yeah,
but no,
I
I mean, it really is like if you watch, I mean, you just watch Virginia even against Carolina on Monday, and at times they were able to do it against Duke, but sometimes you're just going to get. I mean, that Duke team can just do what I think if they put their mind to it, they can do whatever they want against anybody. But man, I mean, you watch some of that, you see that defense played really well.
Oh man,
I think some of the reservations go away. I was almost going to throw out like you and Ben should have him get a few clips of like Virginia possessions where they do the things that I use trying to do.
Yeah.
And then you see it work and you're like, yeah, this really can work. Now, whether Archie's able to get it to that point or not, who really knows? But I mean, if you see it played well, played the way that they want to, it looks.
Well, I mean, think about it. We have
look right now.
We have a lot of freshmen and sophomores, doing it for the first time. Virginia has juniors and seniors who got to learn from juniors and seniors who were doing it when they got there. And so, if we're going to be committed to this, we have to be patient enough to let that institutional knowledge and chemistry and cohesion build up, because it's nowhere close right now, obviously.
When the student is ready, the teacher will appear. It's hard to teach people who don't want to hear. And again, I'm very careful to not throw people under the bus, but there were a lot of ball screen defenses that weren't run well by a particular starter who just jogged through coverages all night long that I don't know was on camera or not. It was a consistent lack of effort on the defensive side. That's not part of the pack line. There's no defense that anyone coaches that says, hey, you give me poor, effort over here and we'll be okay defensively. That's part of what we do. We had a parent yell something out about we subbed out our big guy. And, you need a big guy on the floor. Yeah, but we've studied. He goes well in 4-minute bursts. We're not sitting here going, hey, it's time for us to lose now. We're up 10 points. We want to lose, so we're going to take this guy out because we want to lose. We've actually kind of looked at this stuff every once in a while.
So wait, coaches are making decisions that they believe give them a better chance to win. Is that what you're telling us? No,
Andy, that's absolutely wrong. We're making decisions to make people miserable. We want to make people cry and hate our team and want us fired. That's the coaches meetings are all about. How can we
so glad somebody finally said it.
Tick off everyone in the crowd?
Wow, coaches getting feisty here.
Sorry,
AC
that's
after dark.
A little rant.
No, that's good. All right, so we have a special edition of AC After Dark. The great Megan, Tax Megan, is here.
All right, is it working okay?
Yeah, maybe talk a little bit louder or get a little closer to the microphone.
I can do either.
There you go. That's a fancy microphone.
It's too bad Ryan's not here telling you put the microphone closer to your face a bunch of times. That would be good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he's got better plans and stuff than we do for Valentine's Day, apparently.
I don't know, maybe point the mic towards your face a little.
There he is.
There it is. All right, so are you ready to walk into the bear's mouth here and talk?
I had to laugh when I realized that we had this whole thing set up for Valentine's Day. I was like,
I did not realize that at first, but it works out well.
Easy to say now, but we all know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you ordered a mattress from Comfort Option.
I did.
And so how did that go? Did you do the alpha or did you do the in-home?
So I did the alpha because it's tax season and I don't have time to meet people at my house because I'm at the office all the time. I'm still at the office right now. I've been here since 8 o'clock this morning. So I'm like 14 hours into my day. So they kind of laughed at me. They were like, no, really, we'll come to you. And I'm like, no, really, I work 7 days a week right now.
I guess you could have had him get you a mattress for the office.
I mean, and I could have considered that. Like, hey, will you come to my office and I can check out the bed and then you could just go ahead and put it in a box here and we'll shove it in my car and I'll figure it out. but I did the alpha. They did go ahead and actually, they brought it down. They delivered it themselves as opposed to actually shipping it so that they could drive the vehicle around. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I don't know if you guys just heard that. One of the other computers is trying to shut down next to me.
Uh-oh.
So we ordered the alpha. We ordered the medium alpha. I'm
Okay.
a side sleeper. My husband likes a firm bed. So we were trying to kind of find the right happy medium. And
Because when you go online, there's like several different options you can choose, right?
there are different options for the alpha mattress. There is a firm, there's a soft, and there's a medium. Now, the medium was perfect. You guys, so I blew a disc in my back like 10 years ago now, and it's never been the same. We were talking in the chat mob a couple weeks ago about McBob and back injuries and how like basic things like sneezing is completely terrifying when you have a back injury. And I've literally like called my chiropractor crying, going, I just sneezed and it's the worst thing that has ever happened to me. Can I come see you now? And so I was trying to think exactly what day they brought my mattress. But I mean, we unrolled it. It's all on my Instagram. If you go hunt me down on Instagram.
Yeah, you did. You had a cool Instagram, a series of posts on that.
We were like, it was almost live tweeting the whole experience of the unpacking and unboxing and the inflation, which was a lot of fun for my teenage daughter to watch. And
we should state for the record, you bought your mattress. Now you got a nice discount on it because they offered us a discount if one of us wanted to get it, and none of us had an immediate need. So you got a good discount, but you did buy this yourself. So it's
yes. I purchased my mattress, and if you ask my 3 teenagers, I will be purchasing more of them here in a few months. Each of the kids is, fighting for space in my bed. Which I haven't had in a long time because they're teenagers. But there's a really good possibility that we will be getting a few more after tax season is over. I mean, my kids are all due for upgrades too, but my husband and I specifically had been sleeping on the same mattress since we got married. We will be married 18 years.
Wow.
It was beyond time for a mattress. And we had been looking. I mean, I think you and I had chatted about it at one point right around Christmas. I'd been kind of looking for a little bit, and we'd been trying to figure out. And again, going mattress shopping, going somewhere to do that is so difficult. And you can go to different places and you can lay on different things and you have your shoes on, and it's not the same. It's not the same as what your real sleeping experience is going to be like and what it's going to be like in your own home. So knowing that I also had the opportunity to bring it in my house, unroll it, check it out. I actually got an email this morning from Comfort Option, just checking in,
Oh, that's cool.
How's everything going? Do we need to make any adjustments? Because they will do that with the Alpha mattress too, folks. They will do that with their kind of standardized mattress structure. They will let you sleep on it for 30 days, and then they'll work with you to kind of swap things out and make it more appropriate for what you need if you find it's not working for you, which is awesome. Now, we've been really, really pleased with how the Alpha Medium has felt, but like I gave some real thought to the firm, just because my husband tends to like a firmer bed. And I thought, well, but at least this way we have the option, we can play with this, we can check it out. So, but then, there again, if you have them just show up, if you're in this area and you have them show up and build you what you want, then you're checking it out right there in your driveway. It's the coolest looking thing.
Do you know, could they build like half a mattress one way and half another way, like a pizza with half pepperoni, half sausage? Like, does that...
I don't know specifically because I did not think to ask that.
I don't know that either. I should ask that question.
But I would think that that's not outside the scope of possibility. And I'm sure it's not the first thing that they've ever been asked. And in fact, I can email Ian back. He's been their contact point that I have been working with. He's kind of their brand manager or whatever. And just kind of try and find out on something like that so that we can kind of pull that back in here, because I think there are definitely, obviously there are mattresses out there that market to that specifically. And
was there anything about the experience that was not what you expected, or that was not, in the interest of full candor. And
Right.
you and I didn't plan this either.
No. No. No, I mean, the whole thing just kind of start to finish really fell together super well. It was funny, actually. We have a California King, and apparently they have a lot of issues where people think they have a California King and don't really. So, like, the very first email,
Ryan is going to think this segment is about him now. Suddenly, Thank you.
Yeah. Ryan and his head. But they reached out, and the very first thing they said was, "Are you sure you have a California King? Because we want to make sure we send you the right size mattress." And I'm like, yeah, I've been buying sheets for this thing for a hot minute, and you can't just walk into a store and get those. So,
what's a California King? Is that?
It's so a king bed is.
My wife is laughing at me. Is that standard information that people know?
No,
this is the first time I've ever heard of California King.
Really? That part is funny. Part is funny. So a standard king is wider and shorter, I think. I got to remember which way the dimensions go. One is slightly wider and not as long than the other. I don't remember which way it goes. My bed is 72 inches wide and 84 inches long.
Okay.
Or I don't know. Mine's a California King. It's hard to buy sheets for. You can't just walk into Target and get those.
Okay.
But no, I mean, I think really the whole thing, start to finish, went incredibly smoothly.
That's awesome. That's good to hear.
I mean, it probably took me more time to convince myself that I knew which mattress I wanted to get. Did I want to try and see if I could find a way to have them come and do the custom build? Because I mean, as much as anything, because that sounded cool, right?
Yeah.
Like they were if you go to their website and you look at the pictures that are there, there's a van with a bed in it, and they just put the mattress together right there, and you lay on it and you decide if you like it or not.
So when you do it for the kids, are you going to have them come out?
I mean, I think that's probably going to make the most sense. I mean, I know that the kids like what I have, but like my oldest has back issues as well. And he may prefer the firmer mattress, or, I mean, I have a runner. I have a kid that hunches over video games pretty much all the time. And I mean, their needs are going to be different. Yeah. Realistically speaking, we all have different needs for what our body looks for when we're sleeping. And I think giving them the opportunity, they're all teenagers. They want input on anything and everything that has anything to do with them. Yeah. So, and it's all the same pricing. And if I'm, they don't charge you extra to come build the mattress at your house. That's
what's crazy.
It's the same price.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on here, especially when you've been working 14 hours. I mean, you're well rested, obviously, but you're still working a lot of hours. So.
Best things. So I've been kind of keeping an eye on what my sleep tracking looks like on my wearable. Mm-hmm. And my deep sleep cycles are longer.
Hey, we got data.
Yeah, like there's legit hardcore data. I like data. It's kind of my thing.
That drop is going to be coming back. Totally out of context. There's legit hardcore data.
But yeah, I mean,
it's awesome.
I can see that my deep sleep cycles are longer. They're, the durations are better. The reoccurrences of deep sleep cycles are more frequent. I am physically sleeping better. My back, usually we get into this part of the year, and I mean, I have my office chair is one of those yoga ball desk chairs and all these things to try and keep my back from just completely being inflamed. I haven't had to go to the chiropractor at all yet this season.
Wow.
That never happens ever. Like my chiropractor and I are tight. And I miss him. He's a great guy, but that's a copay I'm not paying this month. So,
hey, there you go. There you go. All right. Well, that is awesome, guys. Any follow-up questions that you have?
I do not have mattress follow-up questions.
Oh, come on, Andy.
I will say that I knew that a California King was some kind of hybrid, but I had at least heard of it. So
yeah,
I'd never heard of that.
Really?
No, but I'm kind of clueless about that kind of stuff. Hence why my wife is over here laughing at me.
The king bed was a big find for us here at the Tonsoni's. We don't like to bump into each other at night, and you can go where you want with that. But
no, it's AC After Dark, Coach. You go. You take it any place you want.
AC After Dark.
That's
bedroom.
We don't want to bump into each other unless it's planned.
Let's see. Comments from Ryan's girlfriend in the chat. Andy looks bored. Andy is here for moral support.
I was updating to be fair, I was updating my spreadsheet that I keep for bracketology stuff with the scores that have happened tonight while we were talking about that. So I was listening. I got to hear that Jerod didn't know what a California King was. I pay attention to all of it. So if I look like I was just staring into the screen, it's because I was staring into the screen to see you.
Because we like data.
Because we like, that's right. We like data.
The chat mob's been out of control tonight.
It has been.
In a good way. They're on target.
Hey.
It's a good chat night.
You know, the season keeps getting worse, but the chat mob just keeps getting better.
Hey,
keeps rising to the occasion.
Mary Helen Chapman has had some good entries today talking about being an IU fan for life, and she said that she just had a hip replacement and could stand to have a new mattress. So maybe we helped her out, Mary. And she says, write to me, I'm serious. So let's help Mary get a new mattress.
So we got it's comfortoption.com. If you use the promo code assembly, you'll get $50 off. So that's where to go. And if you're in Indy or Bloomington, they will come to your house and put it together right there. Or you can order the Alpha online. You can do that anywhere in the continental U.S. Or even outside the continental U.S. I think Hawaii and Alaska too. And they'll ship it to you. 30-90 satisfaction guarantee if you need it. And it's, I mean, I kind of knew just from my experience with Nathan and researching the company that they were good. But now, like my experience with him, working, through the ad campaign this year and your experience with them, it always makes you feel a little bit better when you have those firsthand experiences. So it's great to hear that, and we can recommend it even stronger now. So.
And Mary, we hope you get better from the hip replacement, and I guarantee you that your pregame routine's probably more intense than some of the IU kids I saw on Sunday. So keep up the good work, Mary, and keep joining us in the chat room.
Coach is on fire right now. He is on fire. Well, Megan, thank you. By the way, are you going to be able to come hang out with us after the Michigan State game, March 2nd?
I blocked out that time on my calendar weeks ago. And Saturdays are usually good. That's always one of the things. Like, I was so excited that you guys went for March because we've talked before about how that last weekend in January is a nightmare for me. Saturdays we usually close at 5, which means I can usually get out at a semi-reasonable hour. And like I said,
I've been talking with someone at the Tap about possibly doing something there. And if the reservation doesn't work, then we'll just kind of do it, more impromptu. But we'll get together probably a couple hours after the game.
Are they going to have live music again?
The Tap,
this will be more in the afternoon. So I think we'd be or into the evening. So I don't think it'll be as late as it was the other time when we were screaming at each other.
Because I'm old.
That's true. That's a good point.
I'm one of the old people that they're all worried about at Assembly Hall, except I'm real good at getting up and getting loud. But
are there any other places you would suggest?
If we can't get something else figured out, we could see about getting the Crazy Horses back room.
Oh, that's an interesting idea. Okay.
So.
All right, I'll inquire there too.
I was gonna say, let me know if you need something with that. I've got people there. So.
Oh, do you? Well, do you want to look at that? Because I think with the Tap, they need a minimum number of people and minimum drink and food orders and all that stuff. And
the Crazy
I don't really want to
Horses
get into all that.
As long as we don't have anything else going on. So.
Okay, which they could because it's game day. Yeah, if you can if you can look into that and let me know.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yep, I can get that taken care of.
That would be awesome. Well, Megan, thank you again.
Absolutely.
For doing this and for being so professional with your microphone and beautiful headphones.
Well, these are just cheap headphones, but my microphone is so I can do my radio ads for work. So
you do radio ads?
When I need to. I do the voiceover stuff.
Do you really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. We should have you do some voiceover ads for us. Although I guess that's what we just did here with this because we'll be using your voice in the ads.
Yeah, he'll piece together it like you did read one, so it's fine.
Yes.
Anyway, all right. I got to
All
run.
right, everybody.
Good seeing you guys.
Good night,
2 weeks
everybody.
from tomorrow. 2 weeks from tomorrow, I'll be in Bloomington.
Heck yeah.
That's exciting.
Absolutely.
So, Coach, I assume you'll be making the trek down as well for that. Is that?
Actually, I hope not. That's our sectional weekend.
Okay.
Friday night semifinal, Saturday night championship. So if
All right,
I'm
well,
there,
all right. Well, then I hope I don't see you as well.
yeah,
But
thanks.
Well, we can load up the party vans and head north post game if we need to.
That's true.
If we win Saturday night, I'm driving down and buying everyone. So
Go
Save
Western.
that.
Go Western.
all right, sounds good.
All right, everybody. Happy Valentine's Day.
good night, all.
Night,
We'll
guys.
see you all on Saturday. Thanks, Megan.
Yep.
Bye, everybody.
Oh, and yeah, I'm not going to be there Saturday.
Yeah, you're out. I think Ryan's
continues
okay.
with my inability to make weekend games. So
Yeah, I think Ryan will be there, and we might see if Chad wants to hop on with us again.
somebody else. Okay. So yeah, we got that, and then I guess I should look into March to see when. Although her basketball season will be over, so I think once we get through February, I'm back to
Make sure
normal.
you're free for Wednesdays, apparently, because
that'll be
Yeah,
a real
things-
hoot. So
I hope not. But
anyway, all right, sounds
All right,
good.
man.
I will talk to you because it's Saturday, and then when's the next game next week?
Tuesday, Purdue.
Tuesday.
Yeah,
Okay.
quick turnaround.
Okay. Yeah, I'll be on for that one. So I will
Okay.
talk to you Tuesday.
Cool.
All right. Take it easy,
See you,
man.
man. Bye, everybody.
See ya.